inaugural episode of Half Street High Heat, the new Nationals podcast for the DMV Sports Network. I am Amanda White. You can follow me on Twitter at awhite7877. I am with my two co-hosts. Could you guys introduce yourselves and give your Twitter handles?
Yeah, we are the voices behind DC Nat Shack. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nick, also known as Cap.
Yeah, and if you guys don't, you can follow us at DC Nat Shack. Great follow, great brand. Check it out.
And we'll probably make you mad a little bit, but that's okay. We love you.
All right. Well, we are proud to do this podcast for one of the top sports networks here in the district, the DMV Sports Network. You can get us at dmvsportsnetwork.com. You can follow the main account there at Twitter and Instagram at DMV_SN. There's going to be daily content there about all things DC sports as well as college sports. So go ahead and check it out. Be sure to subscribe to our show. We're going to be available anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud. So let's get into it. Let's just do a little bit, introduce ourselves. I know a lot of people probably know us from Twitter a little bit, and talk about how we became Nats fans. So you guys want to who wants to go first?
I'll start. So I'm sure I have the same story as a lot of people, but I actually grew up a Yankees fan.
Oof.
Sorry to say it, but I mean, the Nats weren't a thing till 2005. So I loved baseball growing up. I played it all my life. I still play it. But the Yankees were my team for a long time. And Ryan and I were actually kind of talking about it before, but the city ended up winning out. I mean, growing up in Northern Virginia, when the Nats became a team, it was like, cool, DC finally has a team. I mean, they weren't very good, but
No, they were not.
No, but I mean, it was cool to finally have a baseball team in your backyard. And then by 2008, you know, you got the new stadium. Zim hits a walk-off home run the first game. You're like, wow, this team's like, it's real. Everything is just kind of just happening. And then, I mean, fast forward to 14 years later, and I mean, completely in on the Nats. There's no second guesses whatsoever. So it's cool to just, I mean, I remember them coming and been with them ever since. So I was one of the first Nats fans. Proud to say it.
That's awesome. And for a while there, Zim was kind of the only thing to root for.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And for Robinson, you had the one.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of like Nick, I grew up a Yankees fan also. Derek Jeter was my favorite player. I played on for 5 years straight in Little League. I was on the Yankees, and I wanted to be on the Yankees. I thought that was the greatest thing. And then when the Nats came here, slowly started becoming a Nats fan. And then I was a junior in high school when Bryce made his debut. You know, being 17 when like a 19-year-old's in professional baseball, like that kind of really got me going. I was like, that guy's my age, like he's on the Nats, and that's what really got me going and invest in the Nats as I am today. And yeah, here we are. Things are looking a lot better than they were when they started, and hopefully great years to come.
Hopefully,
yeah, Ryan,
so.
That could have been you.
Well, I'm a Northern Virginia native too. I grew up in Loudoun County, and I grew up an Orioles fan because they were the closest team that we had. My brother's a year older than me, and we collected baseball cards, and we loved the Orioles. And as time went by, I've always been a DC sports fan, and I never could really love the Orioles the way I loved the other teams because it didn't feel right. And I kind of fell away from baseball for a while because there was no team here. And when the Nats came to town, it was just so awesome to have baseball back again. And of course they were terrible for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a totally different story. But, you know, I was watching and paying attention. It was really 2012 that was the year that did it for me, too. I remember the game where Bryce stole home, and I was like, oh, God, I got to start paying more attention to what's going on here. And
I've been crying since 2012, so.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, I was hoping that before we did our first recording today that Bryce would have signed somewhere so that we would have that to talk about, but maybe we are in limbo on.
Maybe it'll happen while we're recording the podcast so we can break some news.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be great.
Now we're talking. That would be fun. All right, cool. So all of us came to the Nats from different teams, and you know, it's such a young franchise, but certainly fun to watch and a lot of good things. I feel like last year was such a disappointment, but you know, I feel like this year we've got a real shot to have a great team. So Let's get to the off season. Favorite move we want to talk about. You got what do you think? Nick, you want to go first? What was your favorite off season move?
Yeah, so I think a lot going into the offseason, there was a lot of the uncertainty on how the Nats and Mike Rizzo specifically were going to approach the offseason. Was it going to be an all-out pursuit of Bryce? Was it going to be, we don't really need Bryce? And I mean, that's pretty much how the offseason has gone for pretty much all 30 teams. Do we need Bryce or do we not need Bryce? But my favorite move was actually the obvious one, which is Patrick Corbin. I think this move spoke volume for how the Nats want to approach not only this season, but moving forward. One, they weren't going to let Bryce's decision derail them from their offseason plan. They went out, they got their guy in Patrick Corbin. I mean, not that Gio was a world beater last year, but we needed that lefty in the rotation. So not only did we go get a lefty, we got the best one available.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a huge
move.
move. Exactly. I mean, obviously getting Bryce back would be the best move possible. That should be everyone's answer. But for pretty much any other situation, if your team got Patrick Corbin in the offseason, your team had an A+ offseason. I mean, the guy.
And there were a lot of other good moves too, but you're
right. Absolutely. I'm very glad it didn't end with just Patrick Corbin, but that was the one to me where it's like, wow, the Nats finally aren't messing around. They're not trying to be the team that is $90 million under the salary cap. They have money to spend. They're going to spend it. Patrick Corbin, phenomenal signing. He's coming in. He doesn't have to be the guy. I'm sure he loves that situation. He can just go out there every fifth day.
You know, and maybe a second, but you know, I don't think I'm ready to go there with Strasburg yet. But to be a third when you're as good as him, I mean, I think it makes the Nats rotation one of the best one of the best going forward. And they, starting pitching was a great strength for them for a long time. And last year it didn't feel so much like it. So I'm really glad they went out and made that move.
Yeah, I'm glad they readdressed it, and they didn't stop there. They got Sanchez. They just got Hellickson back. So it's re-upping that strength that we've built our success on for the past few years.
Ryan, what's your favorite?
My biggest fear coming to the offseason was that they were going to wait out Bryce before they make any moves. This was going to take a while, so I'm pretty happy they did it. But my favorite move is honestly Dozier. It's a 1 year, like $9 million contract. He's a year removed from his last healthy season. It was 34 home runs. He won the Gold Glove. I think that's going to be pretty important. I think he's going to be the guy who replaces Bryce's power if Bryce does leaves. And also, it's a bridge year for Kevin. So I think having him at second, you grabbed out great defense, honestly, all around the infield. You have 4 good infielders, which not a lot of teams can say.
No.
So I think when he's healthy, his bat and his defense is going to be a huge addition in this lineup.
God, can you imagine having to see Wilmer Difo all year? Jesus.
That's another point. It puts Difo to his 10th man off the bench role, which he's decent at.
Yeah. One of the things that drove me crazy with the offseason last year was Rizzo's reluctance to address the bullpen, actually address the bullpen and not just give flyers to some guy who hasn't pitched in 5 years.
Right.
So, and the quote that always drove me crazy was, "We trust the guys we have."
J. Cole deserved a shot.
How much evidence to the contrary do you need before you
exactly the guys we have and had weren't working, so clearly something needed to be done. So to Ryan's point, the Brian Dozier move wasn't Rizzo saying we trust the guys we have in Difo and even Howie Kendrick. It's Dozier could technically still be considered a flyer, but it's a lot better than what we have right now. So I really like it.
If he rounds back into form, I mean, that's what you are taking a little bit of a risk with the injury history, but he's still the same guy. It's not like he forgot how to play second base.
Exactly.
If he's healthy, you've made a really significant upgrade there.
And if he doesn't, he still struggles. It's a 1 year contract and he's gone.
Right.
Then
there's very little downside. And I like Kendrick a lot. That was a devastating injury he had last year. But I don't like him as our number one. I don't like him as the everyday guy. He's older. It's too much injury history.
Yeah,
and he's too much of a question mark.
Yeah, he's a perfect first guy off the bench.
Yeah. I love him as the guy off the bench. I don't love him as the everyday second.
Yeah, no, he definitely still has value.
Yeah, for sure. So I like both. Obviously, Corbin and Dozier are great. I like the Rosenthal move a lot, but when I went to go
Ooh.
pick my favorite, I think it's the platooning Gomes and Suzuki at catcher because
Very important.
I
was
like it.
worried they were going to go all in on Real Muto, which obviously the guy's a beast, but I really want them to re-sign Harper, and that was never going to happen if they got Real Muto. So, and I like Suzuki. I think he's really good, and neither Gomes nor Suzuki, I think, have 150 games in them. So
Right.
I love the idea of platooning that with two good hitters, two good game callers. I love the way Suzuki calls a game.
Mhm.
I don't know
Mhm.
Gomes as much. Of course, we had Suzuki before, but I love that move at catcher, and I love
Yeah.
the Rosenthal move.
It's a nice balance at catcher because Suzuki proved when he's playing less, he's going to be great offensively, and like his
Mhm.
numbers are better than Real Muto offensively. And then Gomes is statistically the best defensive catcher. So I think they have a really nice balance there because the catcher spot's been a black hole for the last 2
It
years.
has, and some
Yeah.
catchers do better with some pitchers do better with specific catchers, and I like
Yeah,
having
right.
the option. You can be like, this guy does better with Suzuki, so he's going to catch this guy. I don't think there's a problem with that. Some people seem to think that's like you shouldn't have a specific catcher, but I don't know why.
That's why Jose Lobaton had a job for so long.
Right,
Because
exactly.
Gio loved him for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that speaks to why Gio's numbers were so bad. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
that's a really good point. I never really thought about it. But
Yeah.
so there were a
No.
lot of good moves. I think that it's been I'm going to call it an A off season. If they can re-sign Bryce, it's an A plus off season.
Absolutely.
I'll give it an A, but that tiny little asterisk in the corner because obviously, I mean, you even see teams coming out of the woodwork now, like the Giants, because they see
Right.
Bryce is still available. So why not check in if it's taking this long?
I have a hot take theory on what's going to happen with Bryce. I think that he's not going to get the AAV he wants for a long-term deal, and that he's going to wind up maybe signing a shorter-term deal than anybody thought, like a 5 years or 6 or 7 with an option, like after 3
Yeah.
or 4 or something like that.
Mhm. I've always had the opinion that mainly for Bryce, Machado kind of falls into that category too. That no matter what happened, they were going to opt out after 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want an opt
Right.
out.
Yeah. So that's why I always thought, even from basically the end of the season, that I thought Bryce would re-sign just because he doesn't want to be that bad guy just yet.
Yeah.
He wants to see if he can win one for DC so that his conscience is kind of cleared before he leaves. Because I think it's pretty obvious he wants to be on the West Coast. Like, the guy just wants to go home.
Right, he wants to go home. And
you can't blame him for that, but it also kind of is nice and sort of reassuring to see the guy like still cares about the city.
Yeah.
And he will feel bad if he does leave.
And
so
he's only 26. If I were him, I would at least be thinking about the possibility of, look, this free agent market sucks.
Right.
And after the new CBA is negotiated,
Exactly.
maybe that the situation will be better. Maybe take a 3 or 4 year deal, hit free agency again when you're 30.
Yeah.
He's going to get paid a pile of money regardless. If I were him, I'd at least be considering the possibility of waiting for a better market to sign a bigger deal.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can kind of look, he's going to get more money than JD Martinez, but JD Martinez got 5 for $125, but he still got the opt-outs after year 2 and 3.
Right.
So not the money wise or the AAV wise, but some sort of contract that's similar to that.
Flexibility is worth a lot too. It's not all
right.
About
Absolutely.
dollars,
Yeah. So I can see that. And plus, I mean, we're in the second week of February right now, so
I can't believe how many guys are still on the market.
Exactly.
It is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Well,
exactly.
Good segment for good transition for our next segment.
Right,
yeah,
that's the free agency stuff. We might have already transitioned into it without talking about it. But yeah, it's a really interesting. Last year was a weak free agency market. This one's worse.
Yeah, because last year everyone was hiding behind the guys that we're waiting for Bryson Machado, so we don't want to spend money this year.
Right.
And now we're in Bryson Machado, and it's like, name your excuse, A, B, C, D. Like, it's just the owners. The revenue's never been higher, but the cheapness of the owners has never been higher as well.
Yeah, last year was like the least they've ever spent, and like correlation to revenue and everything. So
right.
Owners literally saw, we're not spending money, we're still going to get $11 billion in revenue. Like, that's like $400 million a team. they're going to keep doing that until something
Right.
changes.
If they can get away with it, they will. But I also
Yeah.
see the owner's side of it. Look at the long-term deals that have been signed. Look at these big, huge long-term deals. They're albatrosses for the teams after the 4 or 5 years. So you have to think, what do you if you're an owner, don't you look at that and think, let's just try to readjust the market to shorter term deals?
See, I think those are kind of a little different than what we're seeing here, because you look like Albert Pujols was 32. Cano,
yeah, I would agree. Well, he was
30,
and then it turned out he was a lot older than he said he was. But go ahead.
So like those guys were in like the tail end of their peak, going to 29 years. We have 2 guys who just turned 26 who haven't hit their peak yet and are generational talents. So I think that's a completely different situation.
It is. And them being available and still on the 10th of February has completely skewed the whole free agency market this year.
Yeah, exactly. Because a Keuchel, a Kimbrel can't sign until
nobody wants to pay those guys until they know if they're going to have Harper.
Exactly. And I think it's we as a collective fan base of baseball have been waiting for the Phillies to spend the money that everyone said they were going to spend. And I can see they don't want to go just sign Keuchel, sign Kimbrel if they still have a chance on Harper and Machado.
Yeah.
So
can we just go on record as saying they don't want to play there? Obviously, if they're willing to spend and neither of those guys have signed there, maybe they just don't want to play in Philly.
There's been 3 or 4 reports that say Bryce isn't too keen on living in Philly. But every Philly fan will lose their mind and dispute that. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. It's a problem, and I think no matter what happens, they're going to want that early opt-out. If they don't, it's either going to be like a 1 or 2 year deal, or it's going to be a longer deal with an early opt-out, because they're going to want to hit free agency basically right as soon as that new CBA comes into play.
Well, speaking of which, we're on the midnight train towards a lockout right now.
We are.
Yep. They're not reaching agreement on that.
Yeah, Half Street High Heat, where we talk about the hard-hitting issues.
Yes, absolutely. So, speaking of hard-hitting issues, now I know we've all been arguing on Twitter about the proposed rule changes, so we can switch into that. So let's start with the universal DH, since that's the most.
Yeah. We're on different sides. That could be a good.
Yeah. I am a DH in general hater. I loathe the DH in all forms in both leagues. I can't stand it. I think it perverts the game. I think you make it so that one position doesn't have to play defense or doesn't have to play offense. It's ridiculous. Every position on the field has its own defensive responsibilities, and everybody should have to play offense.
Right. And I see the point of that, but you have to look at it from appealing to the average fan. People who don't like soccer don't like it because there's not enough scoring. Everyone hated the Super Bowl because there wasn't enough scoring. And the American League has better offensive numbers about every single year. So if you get that in the National League, then there's going to be a lot more offense all around, which is why I'm for it, which would evidently help the game. Well, lowering the mound also helps also. But I think that and appealing to the younger generation and the average fan is what the DH really plays into.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to the universal DH that the baseball purist or the National League purist just is either too stubborn to recognize or too stubborn to appreciate.
I like the strategy of NL games.
I think
absolutely. Baseball is just so much better. It's so much more interesting. It's so much more strategy involved. If you're a baseball fan, I don't know how you could want the DH. It just takes so much of that away. And to me, the question becomes, why can't pitchers hit? Why can't they hit? Because nobody expects them to. Every other player knows that. Look at a guy like Danny Espinosa. He plays great defense. He can't hit. He doesn't get to play. Why does a pitcher get to play if they can't hit?
Because a pitcher can still pitch.
Right, but he can still play defense too. He can still play his position on the field. Part of baseball is being able to hit.
Right.
So let me just throw out this hypothetical. Would you be more in favor of a universal DH, say if Danny Espinosa was your starting second baseman, if you could DH for your second baseman as opposed to your pitcher?
To me, the logical endpoint of the argument that, pitchers can't hit, so let's hit for them because it's more fun to watch offenses, then why not do that for any position? Why not just have a defensive and an offensive squad? To me, the part of baseball is everybody's supposed to be able to do both. And I think saying randomly that because you're a pitcher, you don't have to hit is silly. Why is that not the case for catchers? Lots of catchers are offensive liabilities. Why is it different? Why can't
But
you
none
pitch
of
for
them
them?
but none of them are as close as offensive liability as pitchers are. Like
Because
Right.
pitchers aren't expected to hit. They know they don't have to. Even in the National League, people don't care. Oh, it's the pitcher. Nobody expects him to be able to hit. If you
Okay,
treated
but,
it as
I mean-
something that was expected, if you want to play in the big leagues, you have to be able to hit. They'd learn how to hit.
But catchers are still expected to hit, and like you said, a lot of them still suck at it.
Mhm.
I mean, so even if you're expected to hit, that doesn't make you a good hitter. Like, you can
No, but
try-
the ones who really can't hit, the ones who would hit, 102 batting average like a pitcher would in the National League, they don't make it. They don't get into the league. You have to at least be able to hit at an acceptable level
Because
to play.
there's two different groups.
I mean, I saw Spencer Keyboom on a roster last year, so I don't know what you're trying to say.
I hear you.
Michael
I'm
Pitt.
just saying, I think that from the little league level on, if you're tagged as this kid's a pitcher, they don't work on your hitting. And that's, I think, why you see pitchers that can't hit, because they're not expected to.
because
So it's more of a systematic thing. It's not a MLB specific.
No, I think that I think pitchers should have to hit, period, at all levels. And if you saw that from the time kids were playing in Little League, then they'd be able to hit in the big leagues, because the ones who would make it to the big leagues would be the ones that could hit and pitch.
well, high school and college, like if a kid can pitch, that's all they're going to work on.
Right,
So
exactly.
Yeah, that's their golden
once they
ticket
get
too.
Better at pitching. It's because pitching's so important. It's like if a guy can throw a ball a mile and he can't catch, they're not going to have him play wide receiver. They're going to put him behind quarterback, try and mold him into a better quarterback. It's like
Right.
No,
try to
I see what you're
exploit
saying,
their
but you
strengths.
also have to be able to play all the aspects of your position. I don't know. We'll just have to agree to disagree. I hate the DH. I think there's no reason why pitchers should be the only position on the field that's not expected to play offense.
You see a ton of guys whose sole value is at the plate, and they are an absolute liability.
Right. And the
In the
other way
field.
around. You
Yeah.
see great defensive players who can't
No,
hit.
yeah, absolutely.
But
But
those
I
guys
think,
don't get to be in the league unless there's a DH. Like if you
but I think that's a good thing. I think a DH literally creates jobs for some people.
Mhm.
Not only that, you get some of the greatest hitters of all time who bring fans to the game. Edgar Martinez, most recently, David Ortiz. I mean, Ryan pointed out that the AL consistently has better offensive numbers. It's no surprise that the DH contributes to that. And for the National League, some benefits of the universal DH. First and foremost, you don't get pitchers hurt. Like, if the pitcher doesn't have to hit or run the bases, granted, yes, they don't work on it that much because that's not really what they're expected to do. But I mean,
but
they
that's it. It
still
always
you
comes
still
back to
see
expectations.
freak.
Every other ball player also wouldn't get hurt as much if they didn't
Well,
have to hit.
Right, but I mean, think about it. You maybe some freak injury that happened last year for the Nats could have been prevented if the guy was just DHing for the day and wasn't in the field.
Right.
I mean, think of how much different the season would have gone if we had one more piece that didn't get hurt from a freak injury in any of the past 14 years that the Nats have been a team.
Or if
I
Max
just feel like
Nats
that's part
hitting
of
a home run
baseball,
right for the
and every player takes that risk. Every time they get on the field, you can always risk it.
Oh, absolutely.
I see
mean,
the
that's-
argument. Maybe I'm just a purist. I don't like the pitcher
And
being
that's fine.
exempted from the same risks and the same expectations as every other player.
I can appreciate the baseball purists, absolutely, but the ones I struggle with are the people who say, "Oh, the NL has like leaps and bounds more strategy." Yes, the NL has strategy, but how many pitchers do you see go up there and they're literally just waiting for the at bat to end? They're literally just standing with the bat on the shoulder, hoping the pitcher throws them 3 strikes. There's not much strategy for a manager to do
Expectations
when
again,
you
I
do
don't know.
that.
I
But then-
love when you've got a guy like you've got Scherzer on the mound and it's the bottom of the 7th and he's at 82 pitches and his spot's coming up in the order. Maybe Scherzer's a bad example. 'Cause he
Yeah,
hit a little
but
bit,
I
you know
get
what
the
I'm saying?
point. Yeah,
Like,
I get
to
the
me,
point.
I love that. I love that about National League Baseball.
But
And I would be so sad to see it gone.
I get that point, but saying there's so much more strategy is just, it doesn't resonate with me
Double
because
switching and,
uh,
managing your bullpen and how many times can your
well,
your guy
managing
make
your
it through the
bullpen
door?
is
No one can do that.
fair, especially not Davey. Hey, but managing your bullpen is a league wide thing. It's not specific to
It
the
is,
NL,
but it's
and
different
plus
in the National League.
And plus, I mean, most relievers don't pitch, even in the AL, most relievers don't pitch multiple innings anyways. So, like, there's going to be a change no matter what. So the manager just looks to see who's on his bench and then picks a guy because he has to, because he's not going to bat a relief pitcher.
Which brings us to that next proposed rule change. Let's go into that.
Okay.
What about the 3 batter minimum?
I personally like it. I saw this graph on internet saying like teams are using at a record low the one and done. Like more teams are having guys face multiple batters anyways. Like the Nats actually had the 3rd most times a reliever faced only one batter. I would like to see
good stat. Ryan Nugget.
Yes. I would like to see this go into effect. Like you look at the playoffs, like their guys come in, they face one batter, it's a pitching change, it's a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Guy comes in, faces
it does make playoff baseball just like almost unwatchable.
Like it's the MLB equivalent to the extra point commercial kickoff extra point. And I think it's completely unnecessary. And hey, like if a guy's like you say like, oh well, if he's getting hit around, you can fake an injury. Like there's an injury loophole to get out of it, but I think that's a pretty good rule change.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. I think there's still a lot of loopholes. Like, for instance, say a guy goes in, instantly double, next guy home run. Like, the guy clearly doesn't have it.
Right, that's the part that gets me is you can't pull a guy who goes out there and he just doesn't have it that day.
Yeah.
Leave him in for 3 batters? I don't know.
Exactly. And it's like the pitch clock thing. Like, on the right track, but you can just reset the pitch clock by throwing over to first. Like, there's a loophole. And so they're on the right track. I don't know if this is it. I would need to see the specifics to the rule, but I mean, I like it because the one and done is just it's awful. I mean, you guys throwing one pitch, giving up a hit, and then they're done. Like I think there needs to be a little bit more than just that.
Maybe. See, to me, I don't like this rule for a few reasons. One of them you just hit on. If your guy goes out there and he just doesn't have it, and he's giving up hits, you can't just leave a guy out there. And I also feel like all of this is this pace of play stuff. And
I don't like it.
That shaving 10 minutes off of a 3.5-hour baseball game is going to bring any more fans to the game. So, and I don't see these people who love the instant replay has added tons of time to the games, and it breaks up the routine. It gets the pitcher cold while you're sitting there for 5 minutes waiting for a call from New York. So I like getting the calls right. I don't like the time that the replay takes. And if you're trying to shave time off, that's the obvious place. Is baseball existed a long time without replay,
right?
Or make it so only a few things are maybe home run calls are reviewable. That kind of thing. Like, just don't make every single thing. Those neighborhood plays at second base, make those unreviewable. That's where half of the ones are, is who's safe at first and what did he come off the bag at second.
But it's hard to pick one thing and say this is reviewable, but another and say it's not. I mean, because say an umpire calls a guy safe when he wasn't, next guy hits a home run and your team loses. I mean,
no, it sucks.
So it's hard to pick and choose.
Forever until a couple of years ago.
Okay, well, baseball back in the day, you used to be able to request the pitch underhand and request where the pitch was thrown. I mean, so clearly rule changes can be good.
No,
they're
that's
not
fine.
all of them.
And I'm not even necessarily advocating for those things to not be reviewable. I'm just saying if they wanted to shave time off games, I think you can tweak the instant replay stuff.
Yeah.
The 3 batter minimum, I don't like that rule at all. I think, like you said, you can always get around it anyway. And it's just one of those things where, especially at the end of an inning, like you're not going to bring a guy in to finish the 7th because you had 2 guys on and you have a lefty up and then expect him to start against the middle of the order, 2 righties in the next inning. I don't like.
Well, the rule was 3 batters or the end of an inning.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the end of an inning.
Yeah, I didn't see that
helps
either.
A little bit, but I think it's too much micromanaging. I think you need to give the managers the ability to make more choices, but I see where they're going with it, and I don't even disagree that it's an issue, but I don't think this is the right.
Like I said, I think they're on the right track, but this isn't exactly what it needs to be. But I think the overarching issue that people want to nitpick about these proposed rule changes, but the overarching issue, at least from the MLB's eyes, is they're trying to get, like, the average fan of an MLB fan is like in the mid 50s now. So they're trying to bring that down. So I think a lot of this is focused on shortening the games, even though I think most of us here agree that they don't need to be shortened.
Yeah.
And even if they do shorten them, it's not going to be like a significant difference.
Wouldn't eliminating the DH make the game shorter, since they wouldn't be able to change the pitchers so often?
No, I think having the DH would make the game shorter because there wouldn't be so much switching all the time. I don't know.
I can see it both ways.
Yeah.
American League games are about 9 minutes faster, by the way.
Yeah, I'm talking about playoffs. I'm thinking playoffs when you have the most people watching. They are not shorter in the playoffs.
Talking about half street high heat.
And 9 minutes. Like, what the hell is 9 minutes? Who cares? Like, you're not bringing more people in to watch the game because it's not
that part I can agree with, but they want to bring the average age of a fan down, which I get. Like, if you love baseball, you're gonna love baseball for what it is, no matter what the product is. Like that's just how, like, the three of us and most people who like baseball are. But they're trying to bring in that casual fan, that borderline fan. So the way you do that is more offense and like less changes where you have to where the casual fan might not understand what's going on. So I think that's mainly what these rule changes are geared towards.
I am sensitive to that. I just don't know that doing a lot of things that make the game worse for most of the people who really love and understand the game.
Is it worse though? I think that's kind of what we're debating right here.
Yeah.
I don't think these rules are necessarily worse. I'm not saying it's going to make the game the best, highest rated sport ever, but I'm not going to say that they're worse because I don't think they are.
Yeah, I think some of it is what about the other one we didn't talk about yet? The penalties for teams winning enough games. That to me makes it worse. I like this. I like this a lot.
I think it's a good start. It'll definitely help free agency. There's something they definitely got to tinker on though. But Nick, you can go on to your point.
So I like this a lot because I would consider, I don't mean to branch out into a different sport, but I would consider myself a casual NBA fan, but it's almost become unwatchable for me because you have the super teams. You have, it is so extremely top heavy that, I mean, I'll use last year. It's probably a better example. The LeBron James Cavaliers and the Steph Curry Warriors are inevitably going to be the two best teams and rise to the top because they've been the best teams all year. There's no competition. Yeah, there's no suspense. There's nothing.
Yeah, it's very boring.
So I think it's easier with the NBA because you only have a starting five. With baseball, obviously your rosters are bigger. Your starting lineup is bigger. There's much more that goes into a game to determine the impact. But I think we're slowly heading towards that path where you have the Red Sox, the Yankees all the time, and then you have the Dodgers, the Cubs all the time. And I wish I could include the Nats in that conversation. I mean, but I think we were slowly leaning or pushing towards that future, and I didn't like it at all. So I like this because I think it's a losing draft picks for not winning enough games in a certain amount of time. I don't know the specifics of the proposed rule, but basically, one, it either encourages teams to spend money because obviously spending money usually means winning more games than you normally do. Like the Orioles won, 57 games last year? And how many moves have they made this offseason?
They got a new coach.
Yeah, there's a pretty short
did they hire anyone? I mean, but that's my point. Like, they won a league low of games for it was just awful season, and they have done nothing to improve the product on the field. So I think that's where this rule comes in.
Differentiation between a team that decided they're not going to spend money and they're not going to win, or one that suffers a devastating series of injuries and doesn't win enough games. I just can't see punishing a team.
But so I think, Ryan, I'm just going to add in one more point. I think, again, I agree with Ryan. It's on the right track, but not there yet. And I think that's what a lot of these rules are. They're just kind of ideas. They're not fine-tuned yet. But I think having a salary cap minimum,
that was what I was going to say,
would help a lot
than the penalty for not winning.
So yeah, let's say hypothetically the cap is like $200 million. the floor would be like 80 to 90 million. I mean, the owners have the money. That
I think
just
there
drives
should be
me
a
crazy.
floor based on the amount
Like
of
the
revenue,
market
like the
or
percentage of
something.
revenue that you have to
Right.
spend on player salaries.
Yeah, because look at, I think the AL Central, I mean, there's a lot of hype around the White Sox, but I think the AL Central is like the perfect example. You have the Indians who have gotten worse this offseason, but they're still not sweating at all because the other 4 teams at the division are absolute garbage.
Yeah, must be nice.
So, yeah, but if the other 4 teams made, like, even if they're kind of average moves, you would still kind of be like excited, and those fans would be excited for the product that's coming to their stadium.
It must suck to be a fan of a team that doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I'm no longer a Redskins fan. Hey, you. But no, Ryan, go ahead.
See, I like this because it's trying to prevent teams from doing what the Marlins did. The Marlins had Yelich, Stanton, Realmuto, and Ozuna on the same team and just trade all them.
And how did they not ever win anything?
Yeah,
with all those guys on the same team?
Because real talk, that team would have been stupid good.
All they needed was like a couple more pitchers, and obviously losing Jose Fernandez like that set the back.
Yeah, I think that kind of
like when
spiraled everything.
When your star player goes, "Hey, why don't we keep this core together? We just need a couple pitchers," and your owner is like, "No," an issue. It's preventing teams from doing what the Marlins do, doing what the Orioles are doing, and basically the entire American League, because there's like 4 or 5 teams in the AL. So like,
and some of them are spending so little money. I mean, it's like in the payrolls in the 80s, 70s, 80s.
And like the Nats were like devastated by injuries last year, but they still won 82 games.
Yeah.
So it's saying that they want to see teams actually attempt to win instead of just selling off everything and waiting. Because these teams are trying to get draft picks, which I don't really understand because it takes like 5 years for a draft pick.
Right. It's not like the NFL where you're going to have a guy on the
it's not an instant.
You know?
I know. It's not like you're tanking trying to get like some next huge like quarterback or someone out. Like,
that takes time.
That's the beginning to get teams, everyone around the league, to actually start spending the money they have.
And I agree with the goal of keeping teams from doing that, but I think that the minimum spending requirement is a better way to do it.
I agree.
I like the idea. I like the fact that there's no real salary cap. There's the luxury tax that's acting sort of like a de facto salary cap, but there's no minimum, and that's what they need to say. Any team who's going to share revenue is going to spend at least a specific percentage of that on player salaries.
Right. And I think it was specifically worded like this because if it was just proposed as you have to spend this amount of money no matter what, I don't think owners would go for that.
Yeah.
So I think it was worded like this to like make it seem nicer to the owners and kind of leaving it vague and like, hey, you can spend money, you can rely on the guys you have, but no matter what, you have to win X amount of games.
Yeah.
So I think that's a nicer way of saying it, but I think it's, hey, like you pretty much have to spend money to win this amount of games.
Yeah. I got it. Well, it's good to know that on our first episode here, we all vehemently disagree with each other about almost all of the rules changes.
Yeah, it's even better to know that I was right on every single thing I said. So, it helps my ego a little bit.
All right, well, let's move on to the next topic, which is let's give our ideal opening day lineups for the Nats with or without Bryce Harper.
Okay. Oh God, imagining a life without Bryce Harper, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go there.
It's the worst.
All right, who wants to start?
So I'll do one without Bryce.
Okay.
So I would have Eaton, Trey, Rendon, Soto, Dozier, Zim, Gomes. I would bat the pitcher in the 8 and then have Robles bat 9th. I haven't really seen anything from him, but I think with his speed and what he can do, he could be basically a second leadoff hitter. So I like to see him down in the 9 hole. But besides that, it's basically just a regular lineup. And then you have Bryce, you put him at the 3 spot, bump everyone else down, and still have Robles batting 9th.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that, there's not, without Bryce, there's not many decisions to be made. I mean, you could argue that you have, oh God, I don't even want to venture into the Michael A. Taylor stands, but you could argue that Michael A. should start over Robles because Robles is unproven. I would not argue that because that is a dumb argument. I would rather see what Robles can do as an everyday starter, just off the bat, and maybe you get something like Soto did last year. But yeah, I agree with Ryan. I would do pretty much the exact same thing. Dozier's going to be your starting second baseman. I don't think Howie or Defoe take over that anytime soon, or at all for that matter. Depending on the pitcher, the day, whatever it may be, you have Adams to platoon with Zim. You have Suzuki to platoon with Gomes. That's really your decision based on the pitcher, both our pitcher and the preference at catcher, and then the opposing pitcher on whether you want a righty or lefty bat. With Bryce, you kind of have a decision to make in the outfield. It's a good problem to have, but in my mind, obviously you're starting Bryce and you're starting you're starting Soto.
Mm-hmm.
So really it comes down to Robles, Eaton, and just for the sake of argument, you have Michael A. Taylor too. And
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
even
think he counts in that conversation.
you can really put,
This other guy's
yeah,
not there.
you can put Howie Kendrick in that argument too, because who knows, maybe he picks up right where he left off and he's a huge catalyst for this team. You don't know, and plus, it's not like Soto's providing you anything defensively. You really just wanted his bat in the lineup. So, yeah. I mean, there's more of an argument to have. The thing is, I think if we're getting so deep into the offseason and we're basically at spring training now anyways, that it's hard to see any of the outfielders getting moved at this point. But if they did re-sign Bryce and they were expecting to keep him for a long time, not just a year or two, I think Eaton gets moved.
Absolutely.
It's going to take a kind of a gut check for Rizzo to just basically admit that trade, even though it hasn't worked out for the White Sox, he would be essentially admitting the trade was a bust, because obviously it's injuries. It's not like Eaton just sucked. It was a lot to do with injuries.
Yeah.
But you're basically saying that trade didn't work. We're moving on from it, which is going to take a lot. We haven't really had anything like that happen. Not to this extent, at least.
I'm not really ready to give up on Eaton yet. I feel like
me neither.
He's been healthy. He's been really, really good. And finding a good leadoff hitter is not easy. No, we had
not at
spot
all.
was a black hole for 3 years.
Right.
And it's nice to have. And I love Eaton and Turner together at the top.
Right.
Of the lineup.
Oh, absolutely. Turner benefits so much from Eaton just being a vet and batting leadoff and just getting on base. And Turner can he's still so young. Like, he's not this experienced vet. So he just benefits so much from Eaton batting ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's just
he's a good leadoff hitter, but I think he's better in the 2-hole.
Right. But when you have 5 to 6 competent to, obviously, if you have Bryce, amazing outfielders and players to have in your lineup, you would rather trade probably your best piece that you're willing to trade, which is probably Eaton, and get depth somewhere else if you can rely on the rest of your outfielders to perform. So I'm not saying I want to. I'm just saying if they can, that's probably what it's going to come to if they are expecting Bryce to stay around.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they do resign Bryce, they're just going to look at from a salary perspective. It's
that too.
Yeah, $9 million or league minimum, and league minimum's going to win out, and so Eaton would be the odd man out, and they try to ship him out.
And plus, like,
and he has some trade value, I think.
He would have a ton of trade value.
3 years left of team control still.
I believe this is his 3rd year, so like, let's say he gets traded around the All-Star break, it's like 2.5.
Yeah. He has this season, then 2
arbitration,
option, and then a player option. Yeah,
gotcha.
Got it.
So,
I go Eaton Turner at the top, and then if there's no Bryce, I'd hit Rendon in the 3 spot. Soto cleanup, and then I like Robles. I think I'd like to put him in the middle of the lineup. Down at the bottom, he's not gonna see much to hit. So I'd like to see him in the middle where he's actually gonna see some pitches.
Interesting.
Although I like Dozier or Zim maybe next. It depends on Zim. Sometimes he's just hot as can be at the plate, and then I'd love to see him hitting behind Robles so they can't pitch around him, or hitting behind Soto so they can't pitch around him. I kind of have him up there somewhere in that 5-6 spot. I like Scherzer. If he's pitching, I would maybe hit 8 and then have somebody behind him. If it's the weaker ones, I always hit the pitcher spot last. I kind of like the idea of hitting Robles down in the 9-hole to see what would happen, but I don't know. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I like that pitcher at the bottom thing. So
I think that's what Davey's going to do. Should Robles be in, like, let's say the opening day lineup, I think Robles bats 9th. But you make an interesting point where you want Robles sort of in the middle, so he actually sees some pitches to hit. So I wonder if in a world without Bryce, we go Eaton, Turner, Rendon, and then let's say Adams, just to break it up a little bit. And then you go like Soto, whatever. But then you go like Robles in front of Dozier. And
so they have
maybe
to,
that
hitting well, then they have
right.
to pitch to Robles.
Yeah, exactly.
I just feel like you're not going to be able to evaluate him. He's kind of on the cusp. I feel like he might need a little more seasoning, and it would be good to see what he's got. If he's down at the bottom of the order, I don't know that you're going to be able to evaluate him all that effectively.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. I don't know that that's what Davey's going to do, but I like that idea.
All right. Well, before we move on to our next topic, I just want to stop quickly and tell everybody who's listening here about the library of podcasts from the DMV Sports Network. We've got 9 active podcasts right now. We've got Redskins, Capitals, Nationals, Wizards, and Ravens. Also Fantasy Fever that talks about all things fantasy football. There's a couple of shows that cover a mixed bag of sports, the About Time DC show and the Dom and Thunder show, as well as a debate show, the DMV Dispute, which is available via live stream on Twitter. These are all available wherever you find your podcasts, so check them out. And if you like any of them or ours, please leave us a review, subscribe. We really appreciate that. So let's move on to talk about we talked about lineups. What about the rotation? What do you guys think about the ideal rotation going into the year? We've got some kind of options down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's nice to finally have options. Jeez.
I know it was a hard year for the back of the rotation last year.
Yeah, it's a hard year for all of us.
I think the top 4 are pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It's going to be Max, Strauss, Corbin, Sanchez. You get to the 5th spot, there is a couple questions. Personally, I'd like to see Helks in there. I think Joe Ross would be great longman out of the bullpen to let Fedde go down to AAA. And then what really sold me about this was if that was the Nats rotation last year, Max, Strauss, Corbin, Sanchez, and Helton.
Different year.
Yeah, like their team year, like the ERA last year for starting pitchers amongst them would have been 305. One of the best last year was 316. So like that's a world of a difference.
Yeah.
And I think just them 5 going healthy would be really good.
Yeah, I like
absolutely.
Hellickson. I thought he showed something last year. You know, he was better than I had expected him to be, and I would definitely keep him in that 5th spot.
Yeah, like in 2017, he got a qualifying offer. So clearly, whatever, I think it was the Phillies, didn't want him to go. He accepted it, and then he just happened to hit the free agency of nothing where no one was getting paid. So he signed a minor league deal with the Nats, and it was one of the best moves we made last year.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was literally 2 freak injuries that kind of ruined the season for him.
Yeah, so yeah. I think bringing him back is absolutely the right move.
Such a cheap deal. I mean, there's a no-brainer.
Yeah, there's no risk involved in it whatsoever. So I think he absolutely has to be penciled into that 5th spot. And should you have an injury, God forbid.
And I think Ross is going to be innings limited this year with the
I believe so.
A long guy out of the pen is a perfect spot for him, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, I liked the deal. I don't know if anything will ever come of it, but they gave a minor league deal to Henderson Alvarez. He's kind of, I mean, he hasn't been relevant since like 2015 with the Marlins, but he was an all-star and he had pretty good numbers. So it just as a
nice
flyer
extra
on that,
option. And
just as a flyer on that, he's something to keep your eye on. I don't know if it'll ever turn into anything, but it's just one of those moves. It's like, maybe you see this payoff down the line.
Yeah. And there will be injuries. So having some depth is good. Last year we really didn't have any. I mean, Austin Voth. So, you know,
Ryan, you take that back.
We'll see Fedde before too long. Somebody's going to get to, you know.
No, I do not want to see Fedde.
We will, though.
Long.
There aren't any.
No, I won't look.
We all know who we're talking about when we're talking about potential injuries.
Yeah, unless you're finding somebody else, though.
It's going to be Ryan Lohr if you don't stop talking.
All right, so we have a big Fedde fan here, obviously.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't compare to some other players on the team. Michael A. Taylor. Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to talk about, we had a few Twitter questions come in for us to talk about. So we'll go, let's see, what's worse? This is from Dom. What's worse, Michael A. Taylor stands or fake accounts tweeting Bryce? Nick, let's talk about that.
Nick, you want this one or want me to take this one?
I'll start, and then you can chime in if I missed anything. But I'm gonna do my best not to miss anything because this one triggers me just from reading it. So this one's from Dom and Thunder at Dom and Thunder, friends from DMVSN. It's so bad. Both of them are so bad.
They're so bad.
Yeah. So you have Michael A. Taylor stands who, if you don't know what they are, you probably are one. And then you have fake accounts tweeting Bryce to Philly, which, I mean, anything Philly is automatically bad. I don't care what you say. But I think the tiebreaker was MLB getting accounts suspended for tweeting fake news and stuff.
Sweating at that one.
Right. So, I mean, plus everyone who is a legitimate reporter is afraid to get the Dan Clark treatment, who you just get trolled into deactivating your account if you tweet anything wrong. So I think the answer here is Michael A. Taylor stands. And the worst kind of Michael A. Taylor stan is the ones who say we don't need Bryce because we have Michael A. Taylor.
Oh.
That is
There
absolute
can't be any real humans who think
joke.
that.
Oh no, there are. There
You should see our
definitely
mentions.
We've seen them. We've had to interact with them, and we've since stopped interacting with them because they're just too dumb.
I don't even know what you would say to that. I don't even know how to react to that.
Yeah, it just
Cyberbully
angers. Yeah, yeah. DC Nasdaq is pretty well known for that, but no, Michael A. Taylor stands are absolutely the worst. It's not even close.
All right, Brian.
Oh, I'm 100% with Nick. Michael A. Taylor stands are the worst people on the internet.
Yep.
And it doesn't make sense. The guy sucks. Like he literally has the worst game in baseball history against the Dodgers.
Oh God!
Five
Oh,
strikeouts.
God, I don't even
Left
want
and
to
then-
bring that up. I had blocked that out of my content.
Yeah, and then the error inside of the park home run to God.
That was a bad one. And so many strikeouts. So many strikeouts.
So, and he doesn't even have that many at bats. I don't know how he strikes out so much.
It's just there's some players where I can understand like getting behind them because they have some promise or something, but like this dude's he's never done anything.
For the sake of being contrary, I will say I think that if he played more regularly, he might improve, and he should do that on another team.
Right.
Yeah, he has some value.
He does.
I
And I
mean,
think for some teams who don't have the outfield depth that the Nats have, that he's
Right.
a guy you could take a flyer on. He's got some.
Like
He's shown
the
some flashes.
Padres or like
Right.
the
When they don't
or
sign Bryce
not the
Harper,
Nats.
maybe he should be an option for them. But I just feel like perhaps on a team where he could get more regular playing time and be in the starting lineup
Well-
because they suck, then maybe he would improve some. But I don't think that the Nats just have no place for a guy like
right.
Michael.
And
Taylor
the
around.
one nice thing, I don't want to say nice, but the one little bone I'll throw to Michael A. Taylor is he has a good glove for the most part.
Yeah, he plays
I
in
mean,
good center field.
Yeah, he was a Gold Glove finalist a couple years ago. Like he
Covers
can
a lot of
play.
ground.
He can play and he steals bases.
Yeah.
There's a second bone. You're welcome, Michael A. He can make an MLB roster. I just don't want him on mine. Get him away.
Yeah, I just think the Nats have so many outfielders. You know, they've got
and-
good options, even without Bryce, because they've spent the last couple of years preparing for life without Bryce Harper.
Right.
And they're ready for it. But if they can get Bryce back, there is just zero argument that I can imagine for keeping Michael A. Taylor.
Yeah, and plus, like, I mean, he, granted, in the grand scheme of things, 0.25 million for Michael A. Taylor isn't a lot, but you can get the exact same thing for your, let's say Bryce resigns for your 5th to 6th outfielder out of, what is that lefty's name? He played left field. Our, like, top guy in the AAA. Oh, that's going to bother me.
Stevenson.
Oh.
Yes, Stevenson.
Yeah,
Like
Andrew
you
Stevenson.
can. Yeah, you can get the same thing out of him that you're going to get, like that you're expecting Michael A. to provide you as your 5th or 6th outfielder. So why not trade Michael A.
Because I do think he could have some
a
value.
prospect?
Yeah, for a prospect or two.
And like he's
exactly. So
28,
just trade him.
so he's not going to get much better.
Exactly. Like what you've seen so far is pretty much what you're going to get.
Which is a
So-
guy who's maybe the 3rd outfielder on a not so great team or a bench guy off of the team that's better. And
Exactly. So he has trade value. look, another bone. I'm feeling very generous
Oh,
today.
look at that.
So I know I have a big heart. So his spot is on another roster. Bring back bullpen depth. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, I'd rather have another reliever.
Yeah, we don't need him as a 5th or 6th outfielder.
All right, next one from at Ov Geis here.
boy.
Will Dozier have a bounce back year?
Yeah, I think he's a perfect candidate for it. Like, if you look at his year last year, that's not who he is, and he was battling the injury the entire season. I think now he's had about 6 months to get healthy. I'll expect to see him back to normal. I think we'll get to see like over 30 home runs from him, like 85, 89 RBIs, and then hitting close to 240 because that's who he is. But having like a high 300 on base and OPS near 800, I think we could really expect that from him, and he'll be a really big pickup in the lineup, as I kind of mentioned earlier.
Whoa, Ryan. 240 is such a bad average, bro. Like, I don't understand how anyone can bat 240 and be in an MLB roster.
Yeah,
bro.
like batting average.
Come on,
is the
bro.
most important stat according to Twitter.
Yeah, I think
No.
we're going to see him
Yeah.
back to the back of the baseball card. You know, I think he's
Yeah.
good. If he's healthy, and there's no reason to expect he won't be. He's had plenty of recovery time. He's a huge improvement over second base last year, and the less Wilmer Defoe I see, the better and happier I am.
Yep, absolutely. And I Ryan and Amanda, you both have covered it basically, but I think when he's been in Minnesota for the majority of his career. He finished a year last year with the Dodgers, but he was always the guy in one way or another in Minnesota. I mean, he was kind of a franchise face for them. So
Don't you know?
when the Twins weren't doing so hot, they would want to play Dozier any chance they got because that's what fans recognize. That's what fans wanted. They just wanted to go see Dozier. So now that he's on the Nats, I think he has more people behind him who can give him the day off, and he doesn't have to play so much.
He doesn't have to be the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So,
So
yeah,
it sounds
I
like we're
think he
all
does.
expecting good things from Dozier.
Yep.
Let's see. Next one. At Any Honey Dizzle says, what are your expectations for Robles this year?
I'm pretty low.
I agree.
I personally, in the long run, I think Robles is going to be a bust. I don't
Also agree.
he's going to live up to the hype, but I think he's going to have a pretty decent season where he's going to play good defense, steal 25 bases, hit for average, get on base a lot, but like not too much. I just don't think we're going to see anything like people are expecting from him. I don't think he's going to be this.
I don't think he's
beater.
a Soto. A Soto is a pretty rare thing to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think Robles is that. And
Yeah, I think.
I don't think
go
he's
ahead.
going to wind up. I don't think he's going to be. I don't know that I'm ready to say I think he'll be a bust, but I think it also. I want to preface everything I say here by it depends on if Bryce comes back. If Bryce is here, I don't think we're going to see him much.
Right.
Yeah, which we won't really need to, which is a good thing. He can just take time to develop, and I'm sure. I guess his wrist is healed, but he can take the time to really get back into the swing of things, pun intended. But I agree with Ryan. I hate to see it. Like I would love Robles to be this top prospect turned top MLB star, like everyone has predicted. I just don't see it, and I think to not the casual MLB fan but just anyone. I think they're expecting Robles to have a breakout season like Soto did, or they just think finding someone like Soto or Acuna or someone like that, and for them to have the season they have, they think it's not that hard. They think that it's just commonplace that you can find someone and they can just
And
do
can you
that.
imagine that but for the injury to Robles in AAA last year, we likely wouldn't even have seen Soto. It was the brightest
which is
spot of the
wild.
season last year.
Yeah, and I remember I can hand up. I said this, like, when they called up Soto, I was like, this is 100% just for publicity. The kid is not ready.
Yeah.
And I'm happy I was wrong,
Yeah.
but I still think that's what it was, and it just turned out great.
Yeah,
So-
I that was the best part of a really crappy season last year.
Yeah.
That was having Soto here, and the idea that we're gonna get that lightning in a bottle twice is just a bridge too far for me. I can't imagine that Robles. He's good, but I think he actually will benefit if we get Bryce back and he can stay down in the minors and get a little more seasoning. I think
he doesn't
really
have to be a
benefit him.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, and I won't put my stamp on it yet, but he's trending towards a more flashy, more touted Michael A. Taylor.
Oh, take it back.
He's trending. I'm not saying he is, but granted, it's been a small sample size, but every opportunity he's gotten at the big league level, he has not shown us anything. So the guy is quick. He can steal bases. Who does that remind you of? Michael A. Taylor.
I hear you, but I don't know. I'm not ready to go there yet. That's unkind.
I didn't put my stamp on it. I said
true.
that,
That's
but
true. You just threw that out there into the world.
yeah, and I mean, I don't want the universe to like grab onto that, but I had to put it out there just so I could call it in case I'm right. So
all right, next one. This will be fun. At PorkChop47 says, how many wins will the Nats have with Harper or without Harper?
this is a good question. I think we're gonna dive into this in a future show when we kind of do like our season predictions and whatnot. But it's basically how many more games will the Nats win with Bryce?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bryce has so many impacts to a lineup, even if it's not him doing the damage. It's the way teams pitch to him and the guys directly above him or below him in the lineup. I mean, it's the arm in right field. It's a number of things. They walk him and he's on base, and there's just so many impacts that aren't shown in his stat column that he has to a lineup and over the course of a year. So I would say, without just throwing a number out there, I would have to think about it more. Without Bryce, the Nats win, call it 92 games. With Bryce, I would love to see 100 because there's just something sexy about the 100 win mark.
That's a high mark.
Yeah, I said I'd love to see it, but I think a 97, 98 win season is more likely. So Bryce would add 6-7 wins.
I think without him, they're like in that 86 to 90, 91 range.
It killed me.
It just look at the competition in the division, and without
that's a good point.
That won't be able to cover up the bullpen weaknesses. But with him, on paper, they're the best team in the National League. It's not that close with him. So I think with him, that's 92 plus, and depending on health, that lets you know how high that team can get close to the 100 win mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 90, 91 without Bryce. 94, 95 with Bryce. Like you said, there's so many intangibles that aren't in his stat sheet. My favorite thing about Harper, and you see it just about every game, you see somebody not try to stretch a single into a double because Bryce is there. You know, and that to me is one of those things where how many runs over the course of the season don't score because somebody didn't take second.
Yeah, and this is a different debate, but that's my problem with WAR, because like there's so many little things like that you can't calculate. You can't calculate.
Numbers can't. It's an eyeball thing. You can't.
Right, you can't calculate into impact a runner's decision not to stretch a single into double because of Bryce. Like that's just you're not able to calculate that. So how do you really?
Yeah, that would be a fun topic maybe for next week. Is hopefully Bryce will have signed somewhere by then. But like, what is it that makes Bryce Harper Bryce Harper?
The hair. I love his hair.
The beard.
Oh, the beard. Oh.
All right. That took a weird turn. All right. We've got one more question from Twitter. Mullins from the DMV Sports Network as well, at Dennis Mullins. If the Nats struggle this year, will they fire Davey Martinez?
In short answer, I think no. I think Davey and Rizzo are both intertwined each other until 2020 when their contracts come up, because they can't fire another manager after 2 years. And I think both of them having their contracts and expire at the same date is basically ownership saying you have until 2020 to win something. If not, you're both gone.
So I think it would be a mistake. I think Rizzo is one of the best GMs in baseball. You can only do so much. He consistently builds a good team.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you let Rizzo do his thing with kind of free reign, he is. But a lot of the blame that got put on Rizzo, I will say it's because I don't want to say previous ownership, but previous control from ownership was like hindering what Rizzo could or could not do. But now that you see Rizzo have more control, you're seeing more production. And we've seen the works of Rizzo's genius in the past. I'm going to change this question a little bit, and I'm going to say, how much do the Nats need to struggle to fire Davey? I think if you see something in the low 70s, I don't know how we would ever get there. I don't want to imagine us ever getting there. But I think if you see a low 70s win total for the season, you really have to think about letting Davey go, because clearly you at that point you just have to admit that hiring him was a mistake. It happens. I mean, he wouldn't be the first coach to be like this early into his tenure. Like
I think the
mistakes
fan
are
base
made.
would be at Nats Park with pitchforks and torches if they went in the low 70s.
With
this roster, if that's the production you get, that's just unacceptable.
If this team has a bad season, the fan base will revolt and call for his head.
And I have to say, I think that if Bryce comes back and they either don't make the playoffs or go out in the first round again, I think there's a good chance that he might get fired. The PR hit of firing another manager is, I think, less than letting a guy who obviously can't do the job with an unbelievable roster stay. And you only have you have windows, and if he can't do it with Bryce in the rest of this roster, then I just don't think he can do it. But if they don't sign Bryce and I think if they miss the playoffs twice in a row, I think there's still an argument for getting rid of him. If they make the playoffs without Bryce and go out in the first round again, I think he's probably safe. So
and I mean, if they did fire Davey, you have to think about the impact it has on the players too. Because I think it was Rendon who had the comment before they hired Davey. He was basically like, "Oh, I mean, I'm just used to it at this point. We've had a new manager like every 2 seasons.
It's not a good way to do business.
They
shouldn't have gotten rid of Dusty. I mean, he drove me nuts with some of the bullpen management stuff, but I think I don't know.
Yeah,
Dusty is greater than Davey.
At the end of the year.
Yeah, in hindsight, at the time, I was not like overly for getting rid of Dusty, but I had no problem with not picking him because I thought his mentality from the manager role was just too outdated for the way the game is today.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll never forgive
obviously
him for putting Jason Worth in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't even get started.
That's going to spiral off into another conversation.
Yeah, we don't mention Worth on this podcast. This is a Nats-friendly podcast.
You think we
Worth...
don't like
Oh,
Michael
we should have that argument then, because I'm not a Worth hater.
We will let our fans listen to our Worth rant at a later date. But
all right, so there you go, everybody. You get to look forward to that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just think firing Davey, he would have to have a really, really bad year. And I don't think that's going to happen with just the sheer talent. Like, talent's going to win you X amount of games. And I think that number is higher than the games. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we go.
No, I think
not
that's
really.
I mean,
yeah, the one final thought is just, God, I hope Bryce resigns.
Yes,
God,
please, Bryce,
please.
listen to our podcast and sign another contract with Washington.
Yep. You heard it here.
All right, so that'll do it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Subscribe to us, please, wherever podcasts are available, and we'd love it if you leave a review on iTunes. Again, you can find me on Twitter. I'm Amanda A. White 7877. You guys want to give your handles again?
Yeah, that's at DC Natchak.
Yep, I'm part of the DC Natchak fam. It's me and Ryan. So give us a follow, and hopefully you don't get too upset by what we do.
Some controversial opinions and some great takes. We're the place to go.
All right,
absolutely.
Excellent. So don't forget to check out the DMVSportsNetwork.com website. You can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at DMV_SN. And if you are interested in participating or being part of the team, you can contact them via Twitter, the website, or send an email at dmvsportsnetwork@outlook.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will all talk next week. Thanks,
later.
Guys.
See you guys.
Bye.